And we are live. Welcome on your TV there in Texas, in Louisiana. You're watching on the Smart Money Culture TV network, as well as welcome joining from around the world on X, on LinkedIn, YouTube, and the rest. We have an exciting show ahead of us today. Very interesting. The Asian stocks are continuing to climb. The dollar is actually edging lower as we go forward here. It's starting to. We'll see how that plays out. But that's what's happening right now. The Hong Kong Stock Exchange has been on an absolute tear. It has just gone up, 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 up. Now, these guys are famous for not letting anybody sell stocks. You know, they'll put out the order, you better not sell. You're going to be in big trouble if you sell. So I don't know everything that's going on there, but it is an indicator of something, right? Now, as well, it was reported last week that I read anyway, that China has a secret mega military budget, that they have been allocating massive amounts of money into their military industrial complex. And that could have a lot to do with the stocks running up like they are. Bitcoin up considerably today, as well as the rest of the cryptos that are tied to it, right? When Bitcoin, rising tide raises all ships, right? So Bitcoin is going up and the rest of cryptos are following it. Pretty much some impressive moves, of course. Ton in the 8th place. Flip the Doge. That's pretty major. Dow futures are up slightly, and indicating that we're probably going to have a pretty good day today. That's what the indicators are, unless something happens on the way. Now, gold is considerably down, as well as silver, both down over 1%. So that is rather interesting. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Trump rally. We had a historic Trump rally in New Jersey, and then I wanted to talk a little bit about this brain control that came out in testimony in Congress on Thursday, and so far I'm the only one talking about it. So first, let's talk about the Trump rally. Now, this Trump rally was absolutely amazing. I mean, there were so many people at this Trump rally, 100,000, 80,000, however you want to say it was. I don't know exactly how many were there, but it was a lot. It was a lot of people. I have, in my time, never seen anybody that was able to bring a crowd like this person. I mean, he doesn't even have a guitar. He has no music. He held a rally, and I mean, 100,000 people, 80,000. I mean, depending on who you talk to, 80,000, 100,000 people showed up for this rally in New Jersey. Now, it's fairly interesting here. You can just see some of the around 100.
There's so many people here. Man. Over 100,000 people. This was supposed to be, they thought they'd hit 40. So they more than doubled it. But you can't even see the end. I wish we didn't have the press here. I wish we moved them the hell back so they'd have, because they can't see in the back. There's so
100,000 people. And this is what I say, this is a movement. This is a movement. Now, whether or not they still have the magic electronic voting machines. They still have the mail-in ballots. And I don't think that anybody looking at the the election apparatus in the U.S. would think that it is safe and secure or good. You know what I mean? There's just holes all over the place. There's constant cases in court. Whether or not the absentee ballots or the mail-in ballots have to be signed or not signed. There's over an 80% increase in the mail-in ballots that were requested in Michigan. Michigan, of course, is one of those states. It's either Michigan or Pennsylvania. I think it was Michigan. That is the battleground state. Okay. we'll see what happens. There's a lot of people right now in the U.S. If you're in the U.S. and you're driving around, it's very obvious that there's a lot more people here if you're used to driving. So we had more people come into the U.S. from illegal migration. And illegal migration is a funny thing as well, because they come in illegally, but then they claim asylum status, which is not illegal. So once they claim asylum status, they're I guess they're legal, and they give them a court date, way off into the sunset. And that's what Cortez, the congresswoman there, or Cortez, AOC is always saying, they're legal. But anyway, we have more people came into the country illegally this year than we had new births. So we're a pretty interesting situation. If those people vote for Biden, it doesn't really matter. Like 22 million, they're saying, have come since Biden got elected. And so even if, let's say, 20 million more people voted for Trump, which is possible, the votes could still outnumber for Biden in real votes, in real votes. So it's a crazy place that we're in as a country. That is absolutely for sure. And we'll see what happens. And what, obviously one of the things that they're telling the people that are coming is, they're basically telling them that they are citizens. I mean, I guess, let me watch exactly how I say that, but it appears that they're, they're here. That's the other thing that I talk about a lot. A lot of people want to deport everybody, and it's not that I'm against deporting everybody. It might be great, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I'm a realist at this point in my career and my life. That we need to work together. So pretty interesting times that we have there. Now, one other interesting thing, and I actually put a post out about this. I didn't see anybody talking about this, but this is crazy. Well, actually, it's crazy, yes, but it's not surprising. Some of you may have heard of MK Ultra, and if you haven't heard of MK Ultra, you can go just very easily to search MK Ultra, okay? And you can even go hashtag MK Ultra on X or Twitter, and there's a lot there. And the MK Ultra was a mind control program of the CIA's, and they say they closed it, but they used it, and it was they were able to control people. And there's a lot of different programs like that. If you really want to start digging, there's a lot of different programs like that. Also, remote viewing is also been confirmed. Okay, remote viewing has been confirmed. So there's a lot of stuff that's being kept, and it's really strange because it's not really being kept from the public. It is, but not if you look. If you look, it's all public information now. But we have it's like a kind of a weird psychosis that we have where people, I feel like they're not, I don't know, they're not looking at what is going on, or they're not, and that I wonder about that too, if that's some type of mind control that people are not paying attention to. So I put out a post. The CIA, this was during. I'll just let this speak for itself. Let me just let you listen, but I'll read it. I'll read my post first, and then I'll bring it up. So I said this was on Elon Musk's tweet or post. He said, "Yep, this is Doggy Designer. Doggy Designer is a lot of people feel like probably his socket account. I don't know if it is not. Yes, we're on. Okay. So what scares me is it's not the fact that the media is lying to us. It's the fact that some people still believe them. And Elon says, yep, to his probably socket account, but it's okay. So then I said, do you think they are using mind control on people to make them believe the propaganda? This clip is from May 8th, 2024, which was Thursday. And nobody is even talking about this, and this is pretty major. U.S. National Security acknowledges the existence of brain control technology. They also confirmed that this tech has been used on American citizens and alleges a cover-up by the CIA. Now, I'm going to play this clip. one of the senators, of course, mentions Russia in it, but that's not the focus of this, and that is just one of the representatives kind of trying to bring it up. The big part of this is that the CIA has this and has been using it on Americans. Listen to this.
Guys, if your assessments here are correct, these are very covert weapons, aren't they?
That's correct. There's no entry or exit wound. How they're designed is to make the target feel like they're crazy, like they're imagining things.
And you guys also said that these attacks are happening right here in this city. Is that correct?
I mean, there have been some that have gone public with respect to Washington, D.C.
I think it was Mr. Grozev said you spoke to a Russian agent who said that they believe that Americans are using these same weapons on them. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Might that have something to do with part of the CIA's motive to cover up the existence of this tech and these weapons?
That is a very logical possibility.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Goldman, for his round of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to our witnesses for being here. Mr. Grozev, I want to follow up a little bit on the interactions you've had with Russian intelligence about these AHIs. And Mr. Zaid, I want to ask, and this is a hypothetical, but I'm trying to understand why our government would try to block information sharing or conceal information that they have. And one thing that comes to mind is whether there's an operational risk to revealing any of the details of their investigation. Is that something that you have come across in any of your work?
There's a lot of reasons why the information might not be publicly released. And I do think that's something we could address more in a classified environment to explain that. But there are understandable reasons why the U.S. government has not revealed much of what it knows.
There's some long-term things that needs to be done in terms of new acts. But in the short term, we need to do things like implement the original Havana Act. DOD still hasn't done it. They still have not implemented the Havana Act. And we need a VA diagnostic code. Thanks to the VFW brothers and sisters that are here today and for your meeting earlier, we don't have a VA diagnostic code for the 500 some DOD survivors. How are they going to get long-term care and disability without that?
Yeah. Well, I hope this issue you see in a room that is often contentious, explosive, volcanic, that you've got members on both sides who first honor and salute the victims and want to do everything we can to make sure that they're made whole, and if they can return. And then, of course, as the victims have wanted to do, make sure we do everything possible to prevent anyone else from suffering from this. And I yield back.
So now, just to give that a little bit of information to everybody, the Havana, I haven't looked into that totally, but I'm sure that what they're talking about in Havana, there were multiple attacks, I think, on in between U.S. and Russia, and multiple diplomats, I think on both sides, been sick, reported getting sick. I don't think they really recovered, these types of things. So that's what that has to do. But, pretty crazy. But it's not surprising. And we need to get to a point where we have some control over what's going on. We shouldn't be guinea pigs of a secret administrative state that can do whatever they want to. And that a lot of it, I talk about the central bank and everything like that, because the central bank can fund as much of these as they want, and we don't really have any control over it. But we need to get to a point where we can hold these rogue agencies responsible. I think we need to shut the agencies down. And I know I have friends that are working in these agencies. I get it, but the FBI and the CIA were started on executive orders. They can be closed. I would say just as easily, but it's really theoretically, because I'm sure it's quite dangerous to shut these down. Many say that that's why JFK was assassinated. He also tried to put the U.S. on a silver standard a few months before he was assassinated. So I would venture to say that the intelligence agencies and the central banks are working the same group, basically. But we have a situation where we don't have the public doesn't have control, and the administrative state, I'll call it, is so used. They are so used to just doing whatever they want that they've forgotten who pays the bills. Well, actually, they know who pays the bills, the central bank. The central bank takes it from us. But they've forgotten what this country was started on. They've forgotten the bond and what they owe the human race. It goes even above the country. Nobody should be using mind control on people. This is absolutely crazy. And I'm sure many of us have known people, oh, I hear voices and this and that and the other. And of course, you think about all those people, right? And in that clip, they talked about people being crazy. It makes them feel crazy. Well, guys, I'm sure they can do a lot. I'm sure it doesn't just make them feel crazy. I'm sure they can do a lot of stuff. So we need to get our hands around it. And we need to make some changes. Let's talk about the markets. I do think we're going to have a pretty good day, but let's see what the great Matt Dixon has to say. Matt, how are you?
Hi, good morning. Yes, very interesting. I was looking at the mind control and all the, it's quite it's a fascinating subject about remote viewing and so on. I know I've heard a long time ago, America were really into this, particularly with the Cold War against Russia or with Russia, and there was some evidence to say it existed. I've read a CIA report. It's actually a 178-page report on this, and they actually conclude there's no conclusive evidence that these things exist, but that probably tells you.
So again, in another hearing like we just watched this year, they confirmed that remote viewing is real, and they've been using it for years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope that we could do get some remote viewing on the markets tomorrow, please.
Yeah, we have a big week this week, right?
It's a big week, yeah. So a big week on inflation. Inflation's a real big thing at the moment because it's what's been holding back any reductions in interest rates. So inflation so far has been elevated. So I'll just jump into my screen sharing. Actually, I won't start on TON, although that is the most seriously amazing one. I mean, obviously, we focused on TON the other day, TON, and it was phenomenal. Timing was perfect. We said it's looking like a really good one to pump, and it's been one of the big gainers. It's up 5.4% today alone. When we were talking about it, it was about $5. It's now $7, so it's already up 40% since we were talking a few days ago. We gave a bit more in-depth review about TON because it's a really exciting token. It's got the world record for transaction speed, over 100,000 transactions per second. And when you compare that with Ethereum, which I think from memory is about 7 transactions per second, this is 100,000. And it's supposed to be very, very secure, and it's energy efficient, and it's well diversified with the validation nodes. It started off as proof of work, basically got all the followers there, and then went to proof of stake. So it's very, very efficient energy wise. So it's an amazing token, and that's why. I mean, they've got 5 billion tokens in existence, 5 billion, and yet the price is $7. So that's why it's right up there. I've been flipping tokens left, right, and center to get it to climb that market cap list. So yeah, it's an amazing token. But anyway, we'll start with Bitcoin. It's been following our expected progress quite well. We don't know whether it's a WXY to the downside or whether it's a triangle, but either way, they're both corrective patterns So the movement following it should be to the upside. And that's what we've seen so far. So from the E wave or the Y wave, whichever you want to call it, it doesn't really matter. We've had a 5-wave move to the upside, and there's the Fibonacci measurements within that 5-wave move are perfect. And it just shows the markets are clearly not 100% completely random, because they couldn't be if we can actually predict using some of these Fibonacci extensions, the exact turning points of prices. And that's what we've been able to do. We'll probably see a bit more of that when we look at the TON token. So we had a clear 5 waves up in blue, and within the 3rd wave, we've got 5 waves up in red. So really nice. Then we've got an ABC down. That is most likely complete, but you can never be absolutely certain, because a wave 2 in red here can theoretically go down as far as the start of wave 1, but not beyond it. So we could see further downside. So it's all about what's expected from the inflation. So we've got PPI tomorrow, and we've got CPI Wednesday. CPI is a real big one. So we've got producer price index tomorrow, then we've got CPI inflation on Wednesday. So my thoughts and gut feeling is we're going to see weak CPI. And if we see weak CPI, we should get a real rocket under the markets, a real boost in the markets, a real pump. So if we get weak CPI, we will see Bitcoin, and as Bruce said, you know, a rising tide lifts all ships. If we see Bitcoin rocketing to the upside, you can be sure the alts will follow. So there should be some amazing gains to be had. But that's all if we get weaker CPI. It's not nailed on. There's still a couple of possibilities. We could still correct lower, as I said, down to the start of wave 1, but not below it. So potentially, but we've seen a really nice pump over the weekend. I think Bruce was saying maybe it was the Chinese market that started it, but I don't believe so. I think it's actually the Dow, because if we look at the Dow, on Friday, it rose 837 points. That's more than 2%, which was a phenomenal rise that we had from the Dow. And that was, I think, off the back of, again, slightly weaker than expected US data. So
real quick, though, the Dow, if you look, the Dow did, from what I see, it rose 750 on the week, but on the day, it rose 125 on Friday. So I did look at that. I noticed that it was stronger than expected, but it
maybe I've got that wrong. It's I have to double check on that. I just looked on the numbers then and saw 800 and something, but you could well be right. I mean, that would be a massive gain. But
yeah, 800 is a massive gain. There's no doubt about that. We may be in for that today. I think that it was indicating a very strong. It was indicating because things were going down, and it was having a nice day. I noticed that.
Yeah, I think you're actually right, Bruce. Thank you for that, because I'm just looking at the open and the high, and you're right. So it was a smaller gain, still a good gain, but an amazing gain for the week.
Yes.
But that was confusing for me, because it's actually comparing the Dow weekly gains with the Hang Seng, the FTSE, the CAC Koran, all those.
I mean, paper is up, right, across the board. It's it looks like they're getting in position for these numbers to come out.
Possibly, yeah. I think that, you know, we have seen a lot of weaker data coming out recently. Employment data, I think we had some data out on Friday that was slightly weaker. So a lot of slightly weaker data beginning to filter through, and that would mean there's less upward pressure on interest rates. It means they can actually be able to lower interest rates in the future, which will be good for risk assets. It means the costs of everything are going to be much lower. People are going to have more money to spend if inflation is coming down, and as long as wages are still increasing. So obviously, it's the actual real amount of money that people have to spend after the cost of living. So I know that's been really difficult lately, because we have suffered very, very high inflation, and that's really put people on the back foot with spending. But if we're now starting to see basically the cost of living, the rate of increase is coming down, but actually wages still increasing at the moment at a higher rate, then people will have more money to spend. And obviously, if costs are coming down, it's cheaper for industry. If energy costs, transport costs, manufacturing costs are lower, then that's going to be good. And it means there's more money to spend and more money available for risk assets. And it's quite interesting. There's been some surprises actually about the institutions that are actually now have exposure to Bitcoin through these ETFs. Institutions we thought would be very, very conservative and wouldn't have expected them to, but actually all of the big institutions are now gaining some exposure to Bitcoin. So it's telling us there is, we really are beginning to get some proper institutional adoption. And if we just get a following wind with some of the, some of the economic data, and that could be really good. So Bitcoin is looking bullish. Whether it continues straight up from here, I mean, that could be ABC complete, or whether we get a little bit further down to complete the correction, then higher, either now or soon, I think we're going to see much higher. This is a corrective move to the downside. It means that the actual trend, as we can see from back here, the overall trend, when the chart updates, you can actually see it here. The overall trend is much higher. This is just a correction down. So we do expect to have new all-time highs relatively soon, as I've got pictures in there. Just jump around through a few coins, because I think we're relatively limited on time, but we've got nice movement up with Litecoin. And this appears to be all kind of corrective at the moment. I think we probably will get at least a reasonable push to the upside. If we go to 100%, it still goes to 92, and we're 81 now. So that's a real good percentage gain. If we went to 1.618, then we're going to rise to 103. So that would be a massive gain from where we are. So I am hopeful that now or soon, we're going to get a good pump in the markets. I wanted to touch on a couple of favorites, but TON has been, it's just that we recently did a particular review on this because it was identified as one that had amazing potential, upside potential. And we started talking about it when we just had 5 waves complete here for a wave 1. And we're talking about this wave 2 back, this correction back. So we can see very clearly the 5 waves in red. 1, 2, strong move for wave 3, which is the impulsive extended wave normally, then a correction ABC wave 4, and then wave 5 to complete a larger wave 1 in blue. Then we've got a very clear ABC down in wave 2 in blue here, and then we're pushing to the upside. Now, with a correction, normally you would expect to go to at least 100%, and you see the price went exactly to 100% of this movement up here. So I measured this movement from 0 to 1 here, transpose it to start at 2, exactly 100% gave us the termination of this next wave. So again, it's just amazing how these things line up absolutely perfectly. Then we got some kind of correction down and we're pushing up again. So there was some resistance, and we can see the resistance around here with these spikes here. This was showing us overhead resistance, and so far that it has acted as real resistance here when we look at the price today. So we actually tested higher and we just pushed down a bit. It's actually what's called a doji now, and that means it's a little bit undecided. So we'll wait to see what happens the rest of the day before we know what to do. It might be a bit dangerous to jump in right now because we are at this potential turning point. I actually think that it's looking bright, especially with what's expected, or what I expect with CPI, if we get lower figures. But we've got to be cautious because we've already moved up a lot. We're at a previous pivot point around here where prices weren't able to push higher previously. You can see this spike, they attempted higher but failed. And again, this is a spike, it's a failed attempt higher so far. So we've got to be very, very cautious, because if we jumped in here, there is potential for it to, it could head down. And maybe I'm wrong about CPI, maybe it comes out strong. So nobody knows for certain, but my hope and my expectation is that we get weak CPI. That would be a good sign that inflation is coming under control, and it'd be a good sign that risk assets will be able to pump.
And we also could have, world events. Everything could line up. The inflation data could come in, and everything's set up. And then, of course,
anything can happen with world events. It's kind of black swan territory there. Not entirely black swan, because there are some indicators out there that it could be a real risk. Black swans are usually something completely unforeseen. But you're right, something could happen. Russia could make a bold move. We don't know what might happen. Something could happen with Israel. Could be a combination, could be linked. We don't know. So that's always something we need to keep, especially now, we need to be very alert to these potential risks. And with gold right now, which is the hedge against inflation, we got a really good rally up recently. So from the all-time high, we actually had what appears to be an ABC down. That appears to be reasonably nailed on as an ABC down. But the problem is with corrections, this ABC could be the complete correction and we could push all the way higher, or it could just be ABC can be a larger A wave. And then we could get a B wave. So we've already got 3 waves higher for a B wave. We could get a C wave down. So potentially it is possible that the correction is not complete here. This is just possibly 1/3 of the correction. And this is another part of it. And we could have another bit lower to go. But even so, I believe it is a correction. And so I do believe that we will reach new all-time highs on gold. It's not certain whether we're going to head straight there or not. And even from this bottom bit here, we can actually see so far we've got 3 waves higher, but it could continue up to 5 waves because at the moment, this movement down here does not overlap this movement up here. And so it can still be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as the beginning of an impulse to the upside. So at the moment, the jury is still out. We can actually still go either way. So it's possibly a time to be cautious, especially as Bruce always says, people sit on their hands. They don't like to take positions ahead of big news coming out. And that big news is CPI. That is really important. The market takes big note of CPI. And as Bruce was saying, dollar index, the dollar is drifting a little bit. We had some strong movement up, as we can see, potentially in the form of an ABC. Not quite reached our target to the upside, but pretty much ABC was pretty good. We've potentially had an ABC down now. So again, we could continue further to the downside, or we, I know obviously markets can go both ways. It's entirely possible, but I'm just saying there's actually not a great deal of clarity here. It's very difficult to tell where the markets are going. So I think that we do need to sit on our hands. Even the pound actually had an interest rate decision the other day. They actually kept on hold, but they're talking the likelihood next is for the UK to lower interest rates. Probably at the next meeting next month, they're going to lower interest rates. So that's why the pound has been a little bit weak of late. And I'm still saying, and I said a long time ago, that eventually the dollar will flip the pound. So at the moment, there's more than $1. In fact, right now, there's $1.25 to £1. Eventually, I believe that's going to flip. So I think with this US dollar, we've looked at this, just going back to DXY, we're looking at this short term, but if we were to go long term, I'll just zone a bit there. If we were to go long term, I think that we are going to, as I've got labeled here, we're going to actually flip below 100 here on dollar index. And the pound dollar also long term, just going back to the pound dollar, long term again, I actually think this was the seller. I think this was about the FTX low. And the pound is very well correlated with the dollar. So this was the FTX low around here. And that's when FTX and stock markets, well, particularly crypto, bottomed. And the pound bottomed. There's high correlation there. We bottomed at 103. So almost the dollar flipped the pound, but not quite. So we've moved up, we're chopping, we might move up even a little bit more. But I do think that longer term, the dollar will flip the pound. And when I say longer term, I think most probably this year. So that would definitely happen if we get big geopolitical issues, because money will flood into the US dollar as the safe haven. It's recognized as the safe haven. In fact, for risk measurements of funds, when they use basically zero risk, they just say, oh, that's the return on treasuries, US treasuries. They call it risk-free. That's because the US currency is the reserve currency of the world, and they can basically print money, and it is seen as risk-free. They're never going to default, is what they're saying. And let's see what happens in the future. Who knows? But
that's what they say. We can't default. We just print more. Which, as I always say, just means that they're saying they can tax the American public as much as they want, so they'll never default. I mean, it just is a different way of saying it.
Yeah, it seems totally immoral. It seems wrong. And I think there will be a reckoning one day, but for now, that's the situation. And that's what people have agreed the system is for now. So with the pound, again, we could potentially, we appear to have had 5 waves down here. This is the pound. We've had 5 waves down from this move here. So this could be just a correction. So the correction upwards could be complete. And then we've had 5 waves down, moving up in a correction here. So we could soon begin the impulse towards the downside. So we could have already completed the correction to the upside. We could be beginning to move down. It's going to be a big day if the dollar flips the pound, and basically, yeah, that would be a big day. But it would mean that the world is in a bit of turmoil, and everyone is flocking to the US dollar for safety. And people talk about the demise of the US dollar, but before that demise, if it ever happens, we're going to see a massive strengthening first of the US dollar in times of trouble. And this is quite an interesting chart formation here. Just looking at this particular, you've heard of head and shoulders. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of head and shoulders chart patterns. So we can quite clearly see here, this is the head here, up here in the middle, the head with 0 here, the head. We've got a left shoulder here, and we've got a right shoulder here. And then you normally get the move, what came in the move there, you get a mirror this side here, as I got with the arrow. So that is a pretty good head and shoulders move. And actually, there's a really interesting point, is that when the right shoulder is lower than the left shoulder, that is a sign of more negativity to come to the downside. So assuming we don't break above this level here, which was the left shoulder, if we stay below and turn from around here, low on the pound, then that would be potentially negative for the pound. But although it's normally correlated with crypto, so normally when you see weak pound, you see weak crypto, the thing is, there's actually a lot of internal factors with the US economy at the moment, which is very negative. The UK economy, sorry, is not in the best state. They've just come out of recession, technical recession, which is kind of good, but there's actually a lot of negative things going on with house prices and so on coming down. And this is it's what caused the financial crisis back in the US. Obviously, it was the CDOs, collateralized debt obligations, CMOs, collateralized mortgage obligations, and so on. These sort of collateralized debt obligations. Well, the UK is suffering from declining house prices. So it's not a good sign. The UK economy is very weak. So that could explain potentially the pound falling, but not necessarily affecting crypto. In fact, it could be a race to the bottom where the pound is falling rapidly. Maybe the US dollar might be falling not as rapidly. So then you'd still see pound appreciation. But if we see a beginning of depreciation of US dollar, that will be good for risk assets like cryptocurrencies. And we're seeing today gains mainly across the board, not entirely, it's not that strong, but Doge is at 1%. As I say, TON is a big gainer, 5.3% still. So in general, even BNB, our trusty favorite here, is still, let's just go longer term here. Yeah, you can actually see very clearly that BNB is most definitely in a consolidation. That is telling me the impulsive direction is higher, all these green candles here, choppiness to the side. At some point, even if we go a bit lower, at some point, it's pretty well nailed on, I think, that we're going to see some more upside, a new break above this level here for BNB. So I think things are looking really good, and I'm particularly encouraged by Bitcoin. The fundamentals are absolutely great for Bitcoin, and the fact the institutions, more and more institutions are getting involved. At some point, if we get the weak CPI, it's going to absolutely rocket higher. So just to be transparent, currently I'm long Bitcoin. I'm actually long a few crypto assets. I think it's a great opportunity to dollar cost average into some of these things. Never commit everything you've got at any time, but I've been in for a little while now, long some of these assets. The only laggard that I see, and it's really disappointing for me, is XRP. So I've been hoping and waiting for some upside on XRP, and I think they've been held back by the SEC because there's still lack of clarity. And this is the big problem, that there's some assets here which actually have some real potential, real value to the world in the things that they do, the efficiencies that they bring, even just for transferring money for the likes of Litecoin and XRP, of course. But there's lots of different technologies that are basically spawned from these cryptocurrencies, from the research and technology that goes in. Even the AI, we've got AI cryptocurrencies. These are a great hotbed of research and technology innovation. And the fact that the SEC are attacking all these things, it's really affected XRP, I think. And it's certainly affected a lot of these assets that would probably be doing a lot better. And I think, well, I'm not quite sure why they're doing it. I've heard some arguments about it, just saying they need to be a little bit clearer about what they're about. But I think that's just excuses.
It was funny. I was talking to some pretty high-level people over the weekend. People involved in the U.S. government, some pretty high levels. And I didn't want to be like so attacking, Gary Gensler, but I was like, it looks to me like he's like these guys are they're manipulating the market. And the overall consensus is, well, of course he is. Of course they are.
I mean, they're definitely pouring cold water on it. I mean, I just wonder whether they'll, I mentioned this the other day when I was talking that potentially maybe they know CBDCs are coming in at some point. Although a lot of people have said, top people have said the government are not capable of bringing in a CBDC. They just don't have the technical know-how. They don't seem to do things very well. It's the same with private enterprise tends to do things much better because they have a stake in it. They've got real skin in the game, so they want to succeed. The government maybe don't have the capability to bring in a CBDC, but they've been talking about it for years. The UK have been talking about it for at least 9-10 years now. So if they were close, and we were told that they're going to be bringing in, I think even China did an actual test on it, they're going to be bringing in CBDC, these central bank digital currencies, going to be bringing them in soon, probably. If they do, a lot of these cryptos will be under massive pressure because they will outlaw cryptocurrency. And maybe that's what they're doing now, just saying to people. But if that were true, then why would all these institutions be investing into Bitcoin? Because they clearly see Bitcoin has a big part to play in the future of finance. But maybe if they bring CBDCs in, that will be the area that people go to avoid. I mean, CBDCs, there's some good things and there's some bad things, and probably mainly bad things, actually. The fact they'll be able to track every transaction you ever do. They'll be able to track every element of your money. And supposedly you'd be able to track every...
And freeze it at any point or whatever. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so that'd be a terrible thing. And I think a lot of people would potentially flow to, in particular, Bitcoin. That's where they'd want to store their money because it is it is truly, there's privacy, centralization. I mean, there's not entire privacy. People can still track, but as long as, you're able to spend it. And at the moment, there's more and more and more people accepting Bitcoin as payment for services, payment for goods, then, it's building a solid foundation. Even if they bring CBDCs in, I think Bitcoin has an amazing future. So that's why I think that Bitcoin will continue to lead the field. And we always talk about alt season. Bitcoin has run ahead, and they talk about alt season coming. Well, it is possible, but I think Bitcoin has so much of a head start now, and the fact they've also got these ordinals and runes, really interesting uses and use cases, and they've got the institutional backing and the legitimacy of the regulated ETF now. They are legitimate now, so I don't personally see, apart from a few standout altcoins, in general, I think that Bitcoin will continue to outperform the rest. So sorry, Bruce, I'm going on again. You've got another guest, haven't you, lined up?
I have a few interviews I can play. I probably should play them. So if you want to wrap up, I have one here that queued up that I can play.
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, again, as you know, I can talk all day, but I think it's good to get a bit of variety. I mean, just to finalize oil, we've still got a very clear ABC down. That support line has still not been breached, and we've got a nice solid candle so far. Let's see how it finishes. But we could, again, even oil, I think, actually depends on CPI and PPI tomorrow. So that's the big message for today. keep your powder dry maybe, or dollar cost average lightly, but look out for CPI news. That's going to give direction to what is currently a listless summer market, not really going anywhere much right now, but CPI could spring out of the blocks if we get weak CPI tomorrow, Wednesday, sorry.
Yeah, that's how it looked. That was my obviously when I was looking over everything this morning. The listless market. That is a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
It's a good way of putting it. Well, thank you very much. Matt, another great report.
Yeah, thank you. Look forward to keeping up with Ton, and I'll probably feature a couple of other upcoming promising tokens that have real potential for big gains, like we did with Ton. We were talking about Ton when it's $5. It's $7 now, so it's up 40%. This is just in a week, something like a week. So when we highlight these tokens, it's good to take note, take a deeper look, do some more due diligence and research, because there's some major opportunities. If you make 40% in a week, you've got to be happy.
Yep. Amazing. All right. Well, thank you very much, Matt. I'm gonna bring on David Loftglass. This guy, he's a really smart guy. I met him at the GBA event, and I know I still have some multiple interviews from Paris, but it's this is really interesting. So this guy has set up an AI program. It's called AI Grants, and he is able to you feed your stuff, what you want into his AI program, and it goes out and it finds different grants for you. I know I could have used this in the past, and I'm looking forward to him. He's launching, and I'll let him tell you a little bit about it. There's one or two spots in the interview where my internet had switched to the conference internet instead of what my dedicated internet. So it might go down, but it comes right back up. So just warning here. This is David Loftglass with AI Grants. And we are back here at the GBA, the Government Blockchain Association's signature event, the future of money, governance, and the law here in beautiful Washington, D.C. I have with me here David Loftglass. He's with AI Grants. I was just I told my wife about this one. This was so interesting last night. So tell me a little bit, David, about AI Grants and what brought you here to the GBA event.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. I really appreciate it. So AI Grants is really all about leveling the platform and getting capital in the hands of every person and organization that really needs it, that wants to drive impact and change to the world. So it's an all-in-one platform for grant applications. Basically comes down to a few easy steps. First, we'll collect all the information about a group, a company, an individual, a school system, a government agency, or really anyone that's looking for funding. And then we'll use that to train an AI brain on the back end that's then going to go out and find every relevant opportunity in the grant ecosystem they should be going for. That's anything from, $10,000 grants for women-founded company to $250,000 grants for small businesses. And there's basically something for everybody. Once we find that opportunity, the AI is going to come in and write the first draft for them and help them take it to the finish line, taking that 100-hour process down to about 2 hours.
I mean, it's pretty cool. So just to give you, we've done a lot of work historically with the blind and with autistic kids, but I know the process of getting grants, and sometimes it's daunting. It's so daunting that you just don't do it sometimes. You're just like, all right, well,
Yeah, I mean, we hear that a lot. It's almost limited to the people that either have extra time or extra resources to pay someone else to do it. So the people that actually really need these funds that wouldn't be able to function without them get missed and get left behind.
Yeah, exactly. And even finding a good grant writer, because these people are usually busy. Okay, they're usually doing something else. It's not like once you're at a certain size, then of course you can have your own grant writer. But for the most part, if you hire a grant writer, they're doing other things as well.
Yeah.
And so how much can they focus on it? So tell me a little bit about your history. How did you have this idea?
Yeah. So I've been a serial entrepreneur for a number of years. Started in the cryptocurrency space, went into some regulated markets, and then into special economic zones and some other spaces. Always been interested in emerging technology. My mom was the chief information officer for Fairfax County Schools, so I was kind of her beta tester from birth.
That's funny.
So yeah, it was all about basically how do we look at something, make it simple enough that kids can use it, and then scale it to millions of users was kind of my whole upbringing. So I was just kind of lucky to be in the right place at the right time, and surrounded by some AI geniuses that were building some similar projects that we could scale into this.
That's really cool. Fairfax County, that's their stomping grounds. You know, that's one of I guess the biggest probably county. No, it's not. I don't know biggest, but it's a lot of population. Population in Fairfax County is massive. There's a lot of people there. So that's pretty interesting. So you're from the area, still live in the area, traveling a lot. What does your travel schedule look like?
Usually running around to different conferences.
Okay.
I spend a lot of time down in Uruguay. I've got a lot of friends and projects down there on the real estate and special economic zone side. I love LA. My brother lives out in LA. Do a lot of business in Utah with the venture community there. So it's always somewhere new, always meeting new people and just learning from those that are doing cool things.
That's awesome. Well, it is so fun, right? And I'll tell you, as you get older, it gets harder and harder to travel around. Even now, with my 14-year-old, I'm glad I have a 10 or 9 and a 14-year-old. I'm glad I did a lot of traveling before, because now, as they get older, you think that it'd be opposite, but as they get older, they actually need you around more. Is what I'm finding anyway. So, taking a 100-hour process and streamlining it down into 2 hours. I mean, it almost sounds too good to be true. What kind of success have you had with the system?
So we've had a lot of success in our testing. We're actually launching this month, so we don't have user data or success to point back to, but we've got a lot of confidence in the system we're building. And a big piece of this is it's all based on success. So we don't make a dollar until someone receives their grant, they're approved, and they've won the whole thing.
All right, we're good. Well, that's pretty interesting. So that's the model is that the success fee comes afterwards, and then how much is that?
So it depends on the type of organization. So it's anywhere from 5 to 20%. We've got much lower fees for nonprofits, students, veterans, and we've got a lot of discount programs to make it very accessible. The average fee that's charged by a normal consultant or lawyer in the space is at least 20%. So really, we wanted to make sure we're never charging more than what the customers are used to, and we do it all on the back end, which is really a different model. For a long time, grant writers have kind of built this thesis and this message in the ecosystem that charging on the back end is the wrong way to do it because it hurts the writers, but it's the way things should be done. I think people should be rewarded for success, for doing good work, and for really pushing things forward and doing what they came there to do.
Well, that's amazing. So then, like, for the average person, I mean, how are out there? I mean, is there a lot of grants?
Oh, an incredible amount. So tens of thousands, almost 100,000 grants in the U.S. alone. Last year, for example, there was over $1.3 trillion of grants handed out in the U.S. And that's money you don't have to pay back, non-dilutive capital, doesn't come out of your cap table, just helps you grow, helps you innovate and build things that you're building.
Well, that is really amazing. And I asked if you'll be at Consensus. I don't think you're planning on being at Consensus. Are you going to be somewhere else during that time, this end of the month?
Always somewhere different. I'm going to be at AI Week doing a panel next week in DC with Eric Schmidt's group. And then, new panels every week. So I'm not 100% sure where I'll be. So there is a chance I'll be there. My schedule's only planned out about 2 weeks out right now. And then a couple commitments over the next couple of months that we're 100% sure we'll be. But the good thing about this is we can be in any room and it's the right room because this is really for everybody.
Yeah, so it's really cool. I will probably have some questions. You definitely want to try it out. So it's AI Grants. What is it? What is the
AIgrants.co.
AIgrants.co. Watch that. I think I'm going to try it out for sure. Absolutely, I'm going to try it out. I can't wait for it. One of the things I mentioned is the blind, but we did like blind hockey. We did different type of blind sports.
Nice.
I can't wait to try it. Thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Bruce. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'll see you soon.
All right. See you soon.
So there you have it. I mean, pretty cool tech. I'll bring you on if you're still there. We have a minute here, Matt, but it's pretty cool, huh?
Definitely, yeah. So as you say, wish we'd done some of that in the early days.
I know. So he's launching next month, I think, and I can't wait. I want to try it out. I would love to get our blind guys back on the ice, our blind veterans. It's something that we've been talking about, especially as we come up to our gala that we're having in Austin. So we'll see what we're able to put together with that. But really cool stuff, AI Grants. Another great show, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. And yeah, look forward to tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Thanks, Bruce.
Cheers. We will see you tomorrow. And folks, we'll be back on the TV in about 7 hours. Looking for my exit thing here. Here we go. See you later.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost, become a champion of free speech, and help to reshape the future of media.